Hey friends, thank you for checking out today's video, and it's Hopping Hammy. Today I'm going to become Hopping Chef, or at least I'm going to try to, because I'm going to be making a recipe and sharing it with you guys, and I thought this would be a fun new series to start, being that I've gotten married and I'm spending more time in the kitchen now than I used to previously, and my husband is a lot more into cooking than I am, so he's largely helping me with a lot of these, learning how to do some of these recipes. Today, we are going to be making some Reese's Cheesecake Fat Bombs. This is actually a recipe that he looked up online, and then we made it a couple of times and we have modified it from the original recipe. So I will share the original recipe for credit in the description, but the recipe I'm using today has been our own sort of modifications that we've made to it. Today's recipe happens to be for a keto diet, which means that it doesn't have sugar in it. If you are just on a regular diet, you can totally substitute with sugar, and I'll share all of the ingredients I'm using and how you guys can substitute. I'm choosing to do it this way because this is the type of diet my husband currently is on, and I've also been reducing my sugar a lot in the past many years to help my own health, because I used to have really bad chronic fatigue, as some of you guys know, and I had to make some diet adjustments in order to help my body to not have a lot of those energy crashes that I was having, and reducing my sugar was one of the best ways that I have done that. So I'll talk a little bit more about that. I'm not going to get too in depth in this video. I will share more about my health in some future videos, but for today I'm going to take you guys along with me to make these fat bombs. They're extremely tasty. Well, I think so, at least. I know recipes are a matter of opinion, but anyways, I'm going to share the recipe and show you guys which ingredients we are using today. I hope you guys enjoy this video. Alright, so I'm going to go through the list of ingredients that we need for this, and we have a base layer and a top layer, so it's important to keep those ingredients separate. First of all, for the base, you're going to need 8 ounces of cream cheese, which is that entire block. You do want to leave it out ahead of time so that it can soften and not be so hard to mix in. Next, you will want some unsalted butter. You want 2.75 ounces of butter. You can also use ghee, but I personally prefer the flavor of butter for these. Next, you're going to want 2.75 ounces of some sort of nut butter of choice. Now, you most certainly can use peanut butter for these, and I'm sure that would be absolutely delicious, considering the original Reese's peanut butter cups do have peanut butter in them. But my husband does not do peanut butter, so instead he does sunflower seed butter. It is pretty good. It takes a little getting used to, but this one here is no salt added, and it also does not have any sugar in it, so it can be a little bit more bland if you're not used to it. Okay, so next you are going to want 1.5 tablespoons of erythritol. Now, the kind that I'm using here, this is a granulated sugar, and it probably would mix in a lot better if you got a powdered or a liquid, because we do find that this tends to stay in the bottom of our bowl and it doesn't get mixed in. However, with that said, we do really like having the crunch in there, so it's kind of grown on us, but I do want to mention that if you don't like, like a granulated texture. So as you can see, this is a sugar substitute. You can just substitute with sugar if you want. So then you're going to want 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract, just a very small pinch of salt, and the reason why we are doing that, like I said, is because our nut butter does not have any salt in it, so you may want to leave that step out if your peanut butter or your nut butter already has salt in it. It's likely going to make it too salty. And then the last ingredient for this base is that you want to have 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon of cocoa powder. This is the kind that we have decided to go with. It's way better than Hershey's, I have to say. No offense to anyone who likes Hershey's, but this is really good quality cocoa powder, so I highly recommend it. So then for the top layer, we are going to use 5.5 ounces of coconut oil, which I already have pre-measured out as well. That's just the kind we're choosing to use today. And then you're going to want 2 to 3 teaspoons of erythritol, which is that same sugar substitute. and 1.5 more teaspoons of that dark cocoa powder. For items, you're also going to need 2 separate bowls so that you can have one for your top layer and one for your base layer to keep your ingredients separated. You're probably going to want a scale to use to weigh your ingredients, and makes it a whole lot easier that way. And lastly, you're going to want your measuring spoons and utensils, obviously, to help mix all this together and to measure it. Okay, so I am starting on the base right now, and the first thing I'm going to do is put in my cream cheese and my butter together into the bowl and mix them together. And I'm going to be using a fork to do this. You can use a whisk, or if you have one of those blenders, you can do that. I don't have one of those electric mixers, so I'm just going to mix it by hand. And I am definitely not going to waste any of this because food is so expensive nowadays. You definitely want to make sure that you get everything that you pay for. Yeah, this is nice and soft now because I've left it out for a while. The first time that we made this recipe, we left it out for about a half an hour, which was nowhere near long enough. So it was pretty hard to mix in, but you live and learn, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and get this mashed. And then I'm going to be adding in my nut butter. This is 2.75 ounces. This really does take a bit of arm strength to get it all mixed together. So I'm going to go ahead and call that good for now. You certainly don't have to mix it perfectly. It's okay if it's a little bit marbled because you're going to have all those flavors in there together and you'll still be able to taste it. So I'm going to go ahead and finish up this base by adding in the cocoa powder, the erythritol, and the vanilla. So this is 2 teaspoons of vanilla. And then I have my 1/4 to 1/2 of a teaspoon of cocoa powder. I'm going to make sure you get it all out of there. And lastly, I have my erythritol, which is 1.5 tablespoons, and then my small pinch of salt is mixed in here as well. And once again, you want to mix all of that together really well. Definitely make sure at this point that you mix it up really well because you don't want that crunchy sugar to be, you know, a big chunk that you get in a bite and then the rest of it is not sweetened. So you want to make sure that this part is mixed up really well. That's another reason why I didn't spend too long mixing it initially, because I knew that I was going to mix it up even more at the end. So it all works out. I wish we had smell-o-vision because this smells absolutely amazing. You can smell the nut butter and the cream cheese, a little bit of that cocoa powder. There is going to be more of the cocoa powder in the top part of the mixture, more so than the base, but you can still smell it a little bit in here. All right, so I am going to call it good there for stirring. It's not perfect, but you don't have to be perfect when you cook, and all the flavors are still going to be there. It's still going to taste amazing. So I'm going to show you guys the next step that we do now. Okay, I have to share a tip with you guys. Before you start filling your little mini muffin things, I'm using this silicone one. You guys can see how floppy that it is. So you want to make sure before you start filling it that you always set it on something that's firm. We're using a cookie tray. You can use a shallow pan or whatever you would like to, but the reason for this you'll see as we get going in filling this. This base layer is very solid and that one's no problem. However, when we get to the top layer, it's very liquidy and it is going to spill everywhere. So the last time my husband and I made this recipe, we forgot to put it on here and we started filling it, and then we were trying to slide it on after the fact and our liquid was spilling everywhere. We were losing part of our ingredients. So I wanted to mention that as a very important little tip for you guys. Before you start filling, make sure that you put it on this cookie tray. Okay, so now I'm going to take my base and I'm going to evenly divide it between all of these and just start off by scooping in about a small spoonful, and then I will work on my top layer. Okay, so I'm sorry you guys, I just realized I wasn't recording as I was filling up my little cups here, so I'm just going to continue on. And what I was trying to say is you can just take a little spoon like this and just start filling even amounts in each little cup. You don't want to start off doing too much because you might run out before you're able to fill all of them up equally. So I tend to start with just a smaller amount first, and then I'll go back over them after, and I'll add in some additional, filling in order to have them all be roughly about the same size. They certainly don't have to be perfect, you guys. Like when you're eating these, you're not going to be like, oh, one of these is just, a slight bit bigger than this other one. Like, you're not going to care. They're going to taste amazing. So just remember, when you cook, you can have fun. You don't have to, be all perfect, because I'm the type of person that I get really stressed if I'm trying to be perfect, and it makes it not as enjoyable that way. So if you just kind of relax and do it as you go and learn as you go, then you have a lot more fun that way. So I'm going to work on scraping this bowl and getting the remainder in these little cups here, and I will show you what they look like when I'm all done. Okay, my bowl is empty. I've got it all scraped out, and now I'm going to take my finger and just kind of lightly press all of these down in here, which is kind of hard because of the nut butter. It makes it really sticky and it kind of just sticks on your finger, but just do the best you can. Try to push it down so that basically you want to get out, air bubbles and big gaps of air, so that when you pour in your top layer, it will, be able to have a nice layer to set on. It's not the end of the world if it kind of mixes in and, gets that marbled effect. Like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect, but you do want to try and get out some of the air bubbles so that your little keto cheesecake bite will all stay together once it's frozen and you take it out and you want to eat it. It won't be like some weirdly shaped item. So that is why I do this step. All right, so I am going to call that good there. I have tried as best as I can to press down the filling and to get some of the air bubbles out. And we are going to go ahead and pop this into the freezer for about 20 minutes or so. And while we have it in the freezer, we're going to work on making our top layer. All right, so now I'm going to mix together the ingredients for my top layer, and this is the coconut oil. And what you're gonna need to do is to heat this up, and I'm mixing in my erythritol sugar substitute and my cocoa powder. So I'm not going to really mix these ingredients together because I have to first melt my coconut oil over the burner, and as it starts melting, it's going to liquefy, and then I will be able to mix it together a little bit easier. So I will show you guys that step. Now, you can heat this up in a microwave if you prefer as well. I'm just going to be setting this stainless steel bowl over a burner, and it will heat up pretty quickly, and that way I can stir it as it's heating. All right, so I am setting this stainless steel bowl on the burner, which is set to low. You don't want to have it burn anything. Basically, you just need to heat up your oil enough for it to liquefy, which doesn't take a very high temperature. I am going to stand here and stir it to try and speed it up a little bit, but if you do leave it, make sure that you have it on low because you don't want anything to burn. Okay, so I'm going to call it good there. That didn't take very long at all, just a couple of minutes. You can see it's all liquefied and stirred together. Now, it's not going to be perfectly smooth. You can see there's like some some lumps in it. That's totally okay. You don't have to get it smooth. Once it freezes in the freezer, you're not even going to be able to tell. So I'm just going to shut off my burner and set this aside. I still have 12 more minutes until my base layer is frozen in the freezer, and then I will be able to dump this on top of it. Okay, so we are ready for the final step now. One thing that I want to say is important before you start putting this in these little cups is you want to just keep stirring it all the time, because the sugar, like I said, doesn't dissolve very well. As you can see, it kind of all sinks to the bottom, so you're going to end up having a bunch at the end that all get a ton of sugar, and then the ones at the start won't have much at all. Now, I will say I have tried pouring it from a measuring cup with a spout before, and believe it or not, it actually spilled more than just me spooning it out. So I'm going to go ahead and do it this way. I still do end up getting little drips on the edges and stuff, but it's okay. So it looks like this made just enough to fill all of these up. The last time that we made this, we had a little bit of this top layer that was left over, so I reduced it just the tiniest bit this time, and it looks like it's perfect. I'm just going to pop it back in the freezer, and then I will show you guys what these look like when they're all done. So I forgot to tell you guys, you put these in for 4 hours at minimum, and they should be set up by then, and then you can sample them. Okay, so I ran out of time to film the completed fat bombs since I had to go to bed, but this is how they turned out, and they're really delicious, especially if you're someone like my hubby who has an extremely limited diet and you really don't get to enjoy many tasty options. These are a real treat. So after the 4 hours of time, I just popped them out of the silicone cups and put them in a freezer-safe Tupperware to store them. Whenever you're ready to eat these, I highly recommend setting them out at room temperature for 20 to 30 minutes beforehand, because they are softer and have a lot more flavor that way. These make for a healthy and satisfying snack or dessert, and even though doctors like to tell us that fat or butter is unhealthy, it's actually very healthy and far better than low-fat store-bought snacks that likely have a ton of chemicals or preservatives added to them. I really hope you guys enjoyed watching today's recipe, and I had a lot of fun making and sharing this with you. I hope to do more of these types of videos in future. Please let me know if you tried this and if you decided to make some additional modifications to suit it to your tastes. I would love to hear. Okay, you guys take care, and I will see you in my next video. Bye bye!